Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar exclusive to HYCU customers. We're thrilled to be here. Today's webinar is going to focus on what's new at HYCU, what are things that you're able to do with the R Cloud platform today, and how you and your organization are going to benefit. We've got a couple more people joining us, so we're going to give it a minute so that you can settle in, maybe get a cup of coffee or water as well. One thing that I want to mention from a housekeeping item, this webinar is available for on demand. So you will be able to rewatch it. You'll be able to access the slides. You'll be able to take care and really understand and dive deeper, especially maybe if you can only join us for a few minutes. If you have any questions, please use the Q&A chat. That will be able to make sure that Chris and I can monitor any questions that you have. This is a customer engagement session. This is meant to also get your feedback, to get your input, to answer any questions or requests that you have. This is for you. We are here for you, and we are humbled to be able to show some of the new things that HYCU is able to do. For those who maybe are seeing us for the first time, my name is Andy Fernandez. I'm the Senior Director of Product Marketing here in HYCU on the product organization. And I'm joined by Chris Rogers, who's our Senior Product Marketing Manager. And Chris is deeply focused in our hybrid cloud use cases as well. As far as the agenda goes, there's going to be a lot to discuss. There's a lot that's new, not only in our cloud, but in all of the solutions that we provide, that we help you protect from M365 to Nutanix. We are here to showcase every single aspect of what's new. What does that mean for you, and how you're able to immediately turn this on after our conversation today. So at first, we're going to go over the R Cloud platform. We're going to actually talk about a couple of new hypervisors that we're supporting, specifically customers leaving VMware and evaluating completely new infrastructures on their journey away from VCF as well. We're also going to discuss, especially if you're a customer who's potentially also not only lifting and shifting, but modernizing to the cloud, we're going to share some new capabilities we're very excited about. And of course, also new capabilities across our SaaS applications. But what we're going to spend a lot of time today is a lot of you've probably heard already about our cyber resilience fabric that's built into our platform, our shield, which is short for resiliency shield. And in that, we've already released malware detection, anomaly detection, and so many capabilities to make sure that your organization, your data is safe. But there's some upgrades to this that I want to be able to share, and we're going to have a live demo of this towards the end of the session as well. And last but not least, there's something that I'm extremely excited about that's going to help any single customer who's protecting more than one workload with HYCU. But a couple of things that I want to reiterate here, especially with you as our customer, is our mission has not changed. And our mission is to build a safer world through universal protection of data. It has never been a more mercurial time within IT, where your organization is debating switching to different hypervisors, moving to the cloud, you're adopting new technologies, you're probably receiving pressure to also adopt AI infrastructure, make sure that you can enable your organization to adopt that. There's so many moving parts, but you still have to keep the lights on. And the focus here for HYCU is no matter where you go, we want to make sure to be there to help you move there, but also to make sure that you're completely protected. And we have a lot of conversations with customers like yourselves, and many of you came to HYCU to protect a very specific workload because you had a need. Maybe you wanted to make sure that you had agentless protection for AHV, or maybe you wanted to make sure that you were protecting M365 or GitHub, or you had a single issue that you had to address, and HYCU was there to help you do it. But what I want to mention here, though, is that at HYCU, we are not a point solution. We are a platform across multiple capabilities. We can talk about that some other day. But what I want to emphasize here is that at your disposal in this platform, you have the ability to protect your entire organization. What I mean by that is your entire data estate or your entire technology stack, whether that is simply focus on core infrastructure, VMs and file shares, to cloud services, but also even AI workloads, and of course, even security configurations, cloud services, collaboration software. Whatever it is that your organization depends on it, if it's critical, we are going to take a hard look to make sure that we can help you protect that data as well. But that's about our platform. If you have any questions about that, please let us know. We're happy to spend more time later on in the session, really covering the capabilities of the platform. But I want to jump in immediately to a couple of the new updates that we have to our platform and some of the coverage that we have. And the first thing that we want to focus on, though, is on your core infrastructure. That's when you're thinking about backup. The first thing that you think about is, how am I protecting my core virtual and cloud infrastructure? But the question that I have, especially for everyone in this conversation today, there's been a lot of changes, right? We've seen a very sedentary approach in the last 20 years. Many organizations relied on VMware, but we're now seeing that completely change because of the economics, but also because of the maturity of applications or of platforms like Nutanix as well that are driving incredible value. But the question here, and I'm going to set up a quick poll for everybody, is I want to be able to understand where you are in your journey. So you have a poll here, and the first question in this poll is, tell me what your infrastructure direction is. There are some customers where it makes total sense to stay on VMware, especially if you're a large enterprise. Are you already on Nutanix? Are you moving to Nutanix? Or are you potentially evaluating things like Hyper-V or even more alternative hypervisors like Server, Proxmox, you name it? But there are some organizations that are also moving to the public cloud. So I'm going to give you a couple seconds to answer this and really understand where your organization is going. That's going to help us tailor today's session and what we focus on as well. Perfect. I already see a couple of responses.
Some interesting stuff coming through, Andy. I can see already.
Yeah, it's exactly what we expected, right? When you think about what Nutanix is able to offer, it is one of the best alternatives to move away from VMware and what they're offering. And we're always amazed by what they're able to accomplish as well. But of course, you're always going to have people adopting other infrastructure. But something that I don't want to forget about here too, Chris, is also there are folks who are going to be moving directly to the cloud. So that was question number
100%.
one. As I'm looking at question number two, Chris, there's also the conversation of cloud adoption, right? What
Mhm.
does that actually mean? For the first time, from an economics perspective, lift and shift is not that bad of an idea. But many organizations are actually thinking, well, I want to be able to modernize fully and actually run production in the cloud. And what we're seeing actually still, though, is there's still a hesitancy for folks running prod in the cloud. But we're seeing a pretty decent amount of people who are actually modernizing. And you're also always going to get the full circle where people are even thinking about cloud repatriation. So this actually makes
Yeah.
total sense. And we're going to talk through specifically for those who answered on the Nutanix side. I'd love for you to stay for how we talk about our threat hunting, malware scanning, and the new capabilities that we have in Nutanix as well. But this is super helpful. Thank you for answering these poll questions. Now, let's move on and actually discuss a couple of new capabilities. Chris, walk me through, first of all, why for some organizations does Hyper-V make sense?
Well, I think for a long time, VMware, as we've already kind of discussed, it was kind of the monopoly in the industry, right? But Hyper-V was always a challenger, always there, alongside Nutanix. They were kind of the big three, kind of corporate hypervisors, if you will. Obviously, Microsoft drove incredible value and incredible deals, and they got a huge ecosystem, right? So they don't just do the virtualization piece, right? Pretty much everyone's going to be running probably some Windows server. Back in the day, it was going to be Exchange and SharePoint. And as things have modernized, they're now running 365 and probably some Azure workloads and all the other things, right? So they've got this huge ecosystem. So suddenly when the hypervisor landscape rocked and shifted and we had those seismic events over the last couple of years where people didn't really know where they were going to end up shaking out. Microsoft was a very safe way to go to be like, hey, we've been around forever. You already use us. You've already got us installed because it comes by default on all the server operating systems, right? So the kind of the learning path or the risk path was so low for most organizations. It was kind of a natural alternative to then switch into from VMware into Hyper-V, right? And Microsoft did a really good job of kind of reigniting Hyper-V because they were kind of sunsetting it away a little bit, right? Azure Local came along or Azure Stack HCI. People thought that was going to be the replacement. And people were obviously and Microsoft wanted Azure to kind of be the next thing. But actually, when they realized what was happening with VMware and realizing what customer demand was, they've reignited it and actually done a great job of reigniting it actually as well. So I think the risk profile, kind of probably the cost profile as well, meaning that organizations can adopt it quickly, and obviously save a ton of money in their TCO calculations as well. That's kind of why people have moved, or we've seen a big ask and a big shift into the Hyper-V, where traditionally we saw it dropping off over the last five or so years, but actually now we're seeing a resurgence.
Now, Chris, that's a good insight, especially if you're a Microsoft shop. It is a logical approach. Walk us through though. We've added now Hyper-V support. Walk us through what can
Absolutely.
I expect as a customer? What are the capabilities? What's unique about this, and why does it make sense to go with Haiku from a Hyper-V perspective?
Yeah, so it's a really boring answer, but it's exactly what you expect from a Haiku solution, right? So we haven't ripped up how we do protection for VMware and Nutanix and Azure Local, for instance. We've taken our platform and applied our platform to Hyper-V, right? So all of kind of the same principles, the same core values, those same unique points that we have, and why people have chosen us already, right? Everyone on this webinar is a customer. They've chosen us for those reasons. They all still apply. So when I'm talking about things like, always agentless, native integration, no big proxies or, overweighted kind of infrastructure or bloated things that we're going to have to install, right? We're doing things the right way, the simple way. The automated application discovery that we've patented applies across all of our hypervisor estate, right? So it's not just for Nutanix, not just for Azure Local, etc. It's now for Hyper-V as well. Enabling freedom of choice, as we've discussed, kind of the biggest reason why Hyper-V and Nutanix and all these other alternative hypervisors have kind of rocketed recently is because of what Broadcom did with the VMware situation, right? People are now kind of once bitten, twice shy. So they now understand that they had a huge reliance on VMware in their data centers, and now they're picking the next one. They want to have data mobility, data portability, and ownership and sovereignty, and kind of own their own path, own their own journey. So if something changes in the next 1, 2, 5 years, they have the ability to move. And then Haiku brings that to you as well, right? We bring that portability, that flexibility, and that freedom because we allow cross hypervisor recovery, right? So we can aid you on the journey to Hyper-V, but also potentially offer a path out of Hyper-V. And that might not be because Hyper-V isn't good or not a suitable solution. It might just be maturity, right? So you want to move into the public cloud because you're refactoring these applications, and these 20 VMs, they just need to run as they are, right? And that might be a simple lift and shift. So we can help you with that. That might be moving disaster recovery into the cloud using our spin up capability. That might be starting to enable a multi-cloud approach where we're going to use Hyper-V, we're going to use Azure, but we're also going to use GCP or AWS as well, right? So we're giving you all the platform that you're used to from Haiku, but now just applying that to Hyper-V. So when I say what's new, what's here, it's everything you expect from Haiku, but just done for Hyper-V, quite simply.
No, that's a great point, especially on the mobility side. Folks want to make sure that they always have a way out, no matter what solution, no matter how great the solution is, and that makes sense, and that's
Agreed.
something that's unique to what we can provide. But Chris, just very quickly, if you're choosing Hyper-V, likely is that you're a Microsoft shop and you're leveraging tons of
Yep,
Microsoft services, including cloud
agreed.
services as well. Where's the unique focus in Haiku? What can we deliver to our customers that makes us a little bit more unique in this approach when it's Hyper-V plus everything else that Microsoft offers?
Yeah, it's the kind of that one view, and I know we've got some slides on this later, so hopefully you guys can stick around and see what we're bringing to that unification. But essentially, we're giving you not what kind of what Sandy mentioned earlier. We're not just a point solution, so you're not hopefully you don't just pick us for Hyper-V, because then you can go around and say I'm running Azure Files, I'm running Azure Blob Storage, I've got Azure SQL running, I'm running 365, I'm running Entra, I'm running GitHub, which is a Microsoft-owned company. If you didn't know. So suddenly, from a single platform provider, you can provide data protection across the entire estate, the entire Microsoft ecosystem that you have, through one vendor, one support system, one licensing, one view, right? So it kind of reimagines how organizations typically do backup when they go, okay, I need my hypervisor backup, now I need my cloud backup, and then I need to find something for SaaS and maybe going to run the risk that I don't even back some of it up. Suddenly now you have visibility and you have availability to back up all of these things for a single provider, giving you that kind of economy of scale, but simplified. So you can back up all these workloads without having all the complexity and the headache that comes with backing up all these workloads typically. So if you are running, more than one Microsoft product, which very, very likely you are, and this isn't even an extensive list. This we can still, protect things like Exchange if running it on premises, on-premise SQL, SQL databases. So all those things are still protected as well, all the way through to the brand new things, which is Azure SQL, Azure instances, 365. Entra ID is probably one of the biggest, newest things we've started to see. A lot of kind of noise. It was on the Gartner hype cycle quite recently. The identity protection and identity management is kind of one of the biggest attack vectors. So we need to start protecting things like that. So it's kind of that. What do we bring? We bring a holistic solution to be able to bring that all together. You can see it from one place. You can protect it in one place.
Oh, thank you, Chris. Now, this was a customer request. This is something that customers asked for, but we actually had another customer request as well. Organizations
Mhm.
are not simply just moving to one workload. We know Nutanix is going to be the primary adoption that folks, especially if they're staying on-prem, they're going to most likely move to Nutanix. There's going to be a subset of folks that move to Hyper-V, but there's still going to be a cluster of customers who choose alternate hypervisors as well. One of the things that we're also excited to announce as well is specifically because customers are making this move and they want to adopt technologies that work for them and their unique requirements. We also have early access support for Zen Server. Chris, walk us through, what does this mean? What are customers able to do? And of course, if you have questions on this early access program, reach out to your account manager. But Chris, just walk us through quickly the capabilities that we have for Zen Server.
Yeah, so obviously, as Andy mentioned a minute ago, early access. So, it's not GA of yet, but if you want to get access to that, speak to your account team and we can hook you into that. But I suppose the reason why people are moving to Zen Server, or, I'm going to say it's familiarity. People who are used to using, Citrix and Zen Server to run their big VDI environments, Citrix isn't going away, right? It's been here forever and it's still running the vast majority of VDI instances. So a natural step is if you've got a huge VDI estate and now you're running VMware next door to it and you want to shift from VMware, a really easy path is to extend your Zen server estate into, your enterprise applications and your infrastructure workloads as well. So, this has come, as Andy said, from a customer request from us or multiple customer requests to say, hey, could you guys do what you do, but for Zen? So, this, first of all, again, 100% agent list, super efficient, super simple, super secure, what we're trying to deliver. The same thing goes for the storage and the immutability, the security piece. We're always immutable on the storage if as long as the storage supports that. And then the ability to own it from, end to end, right? So we don't store it in anyone else's cloud. We store it always in the customer's data centers or cloud tenant, wherever that may be. So you can still use things like Dell Data Domain, Wasabi, S3 compatible, or if you want to go direct to cloud, you can use S3, Azure Blob, GCP cloud storage as well. So we're kind of giving you that for the early access, the kind of the core concepts of what you need to build out your backup and recovery profile for Zen.
Now, thank you so much, Chris. And let's move on now, especially for our customers attending today who are data domain users. Chris, if I'm leveraging especially like a multi-copy, multi-site approach on the data domain side, walk us through
Yep.
new capabilities. What does that actually mean for me? And how does that make my life easier with HYCU and data domain?
Yeah, so we're really, really happy that we're kind of becoming even more entrenched in the Dell ecosystem, right? It kind of shows that joint commitment between both organizations to drive adoption and drive usage across organizations and really help those people who are using, one of the most popular backup appliances in the world in data domain. So essentially, for the first thing we have here is managed replication. So managed file replication if you're a bit of a techie. So what does that really mean? Well, through Haiku, you've always had the ability to copy backups, right? We take the backup from, site A and put it to site B. But people have asked us, well, if I've already got the data written to data domain and it's already ingested, it's already deduplicated, I've got that huge data efficiency ratio that data domain is known for, can I just use their really cool replication in the back end? And we went, yeah, absolutely, you can do that. But we'll have to do some bits on the other side to make sure we know that it's been replicated and kind of re-index. And we go, okay, fine. The trade-off is worth it, right? Because of what I'm saving in bandwidth and all that kind of stuff. And then we looked at that customer request and said, well, what if we can, instead of all that stuff we have to do manually, we can just simply hook into their managed replication. That's exactly what our development teams have done jointly with Dell. You can now replicate data between data domains orchestrated by Haiku. So you don't ever have to leave the Haiku UI, you don't ever have to leave the Haiku ecosystem, but you still get all the benefits of doing data domain to data domain replication. So all of that, completely secure traffic. It's never leaving a data domain and DD boost protocol. It's got the data efficiencies on there, so it's only ever sending unique blocks. It never sends any duplicated blocks. Really, really powerful for disaster recovery, as Andy mentioned. So if you've got multiple sites or robo sites, you want to replicate data between them all, but also incredibly powerful for the hybrid multi-cloud strategy as well. Moving data from a data domain on premise that you own into a public cloud, right? So automatically you're storing less data in the public cloud, a great TCO model. Or for a multi-cloud approach, having a data domain in a public cloud and then having another data domain in another public cloud, giving you that portability and flexibility and freedom to then ship data between them. you're minimizing any egress costs because guess what? All that data efficiency is already applied. So we're moving, essentially like 40 times less data than we would be if we were just doing typical copy jobs between buckets and stuff. But then the beauty comes in is when how Haiku can then orchestrate the recovery between those places, right? So we can recover on-prem to any hypervisor you want, right? We can then recover into the cloud into your primary copy, or recover into your secondary copy in the cloud as well. Or if you wanted, we can recover into a tertiary cloud as well. But it's giving you that portability, that flexibility, that freedom to really own your own data journey and say, day one, it's a data domain on premise replicating to my site B, right? East Coast to West Coast, Europe to a USA, whatever it may be. But actually, as we change and as we mature, as we adopt cloud strategies and how we think about our data portfolio, that might change into we want to have a copy in the cloud. Then that might evolve into we want to have copies in multiple clouds. And that might evolve into we don't want to have any data on premise anymore. So we're going to use three clouds, right? With data domain, it can still sit in that layer. So you don't have to worry about when you're changing those technologies and doing those big changes in, from on-prem to cloud, the data domain can be the constant. You don't have to rewrite backups to, you don't have to redo anything else. Haiku goes with you, data domain goes with you. It just simplifies that whole process.
No, thank you, Chris. Now, you know, some organizations, especially those looking at Nutanix, still wanted us to have some storage flexibility. Walk me through Nutanix and Dell's recent announcement of PowerFlex. What does that actually mean? And of course, can I start using that and protecting that with HYCU today?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is an industry first, right? So Nutanix have their own HCI platform or hyper converged infrastructure if you're not a tech guy, or gal. So they owned their own storage stack, right? Which was great. They've done really successful with it, and they still continue to be really successful. I think the one thing that potentially was holding them back from a lot of these VMware wave of migrations was people invested in, outside storage, right? So they weren't in vSAN, they were in PowerFlex, for instance. So they didn't want to just, you know, use them as doorstops or anything else. They wanted to, utilize their infrastructure they've already invested in. So Dell PowerFlex was actually the first third-party storage vendor supported on Nutanix, and I still believe it is the first. I think others have tried to join the party and is still kind of within marketing phase, right? I don't think they've actually validated and bring it GA. One thing we did notice was customers were asking, okay, well, does that change my data protection? Does that change the way that I have to do things? Because typically before, Nutanix had the whole stack, right? So it was quite easy to integrate or easier to integrate. So suddenly we found ourselves in a really, really great position where we're incredibly close with Nutanix. We're incredibly close with Dell. So we jointly validated the solution between all three of us. So this wasn't just Haiku going in and saying, yeah, guys, it works. We'll add it to our list, right? We were deep with Nutanix, deep with the Dell teams and engineering and product teams, and saying, right, we need to really stress test this. And it's a joint validation between Nutanix, Dell, and Haiku to say this is validated to work exactly as intended. So we're not changing the way that the Dell PowerFlex is supposed to work on Nutanix. We're not making something that works but isn't optimal or isn't efficient. We're doing it the best way with the best practices with both Dell and Nutanix on board as well. That gives organizations like that zero barrier to entry, right? You don't want to move to something or potentially adopt something if you can't protect it properly, right? That's a big barrier. That's been a big barrier for SaaS organizations and cloud organizations as well. And then forward thinking to that, it's amazing to say that we can give you ongoing trust and security because we are validated by Dell and Nutanix, and we'll be continued to validate by them every time they bring a new release out, a new update, a new feature function, whatever it might be. We're in that continuous communication, continuous development cycle with all three vendors, so we know that whatever comes, we'll have you covered on that as well. So you can kind of really see the deep integration we're starting to get, or you already have with Dell and Nutanix, but just the next level. We know they're bringing something brand new to market. We're the first and only to officially support that, validated by all three vendors.
No, thank you, Chris. And this is the whole focus, our whole approach is flexibility. We want to be a catalyst for your new infrastructure adoption. Backup historically can actually be something that holds you back. Our goal is to help you move, to help you protect no matter what you choose. Whether you're going to stay on-prem, whether you are a Nutanix shop, you of course know our value and our commitment there. But it does not matter where your organization's going. HYCU's focus is to help you go there and even come back or move to another platform no matter what. So that's kind of the hybrid cloud. Just to summarize a couple things here. Support for Hyper-V, early access support for Zen Server, improve multi-site management for data domain customers with replication integration, and of course, support for Dell PowerScale. There's actually a white paper available with Dell, HYCU, and Nutanix. We'll share a link for that as well. If you kind of want to see the reference architecture, how does that work? What's the value of that if you're interested? But I want to move over because there was a couple of folks who answered, especially in the poll question. And one thing that I do want to mention, and I saw questions from folks like Ken and customers of ours, we are fully committed to make sure that we support you where regardless of where you go to. So we'll have full conversations around what are the new infrastructures that you're looking to move to? What are the use cases that we need? And that's a full commitment from HYCU. So we'll follow up on that as well. And we're also going to share some exciting announcements at the end around consolidated management as well. But let's now talk a little bit, especially if you're a customer for a few minutes who is moving to public cloud. Maybe you've lifted and shifted, but maybe you're actually thinking about fully modernizing. The way that these applications are architected and the way that they work is completely different. But for some reason, the approach in the data protection industry has been to essentially protect it the same way. And what do I mean by that? Well, from an on-prem perspective, your focus is, and Chris, back when you were an infrastructure engineer, what was your focus on protecting virtual workloads, right? Compute, storage, and database. But that
Yeah,
is
100%.
that is drastically different when you're actually running production and using decoupled cloud services. So when you look at your average architecture, specifically, let's just use AWS as an example here, it is a vastly different architecture. There are vastly different ways where data can be lost. There's different entry points, different types of cyber attacks that you have to be aware of. So just bolting on the same backup and recovery solution that you had for on-prem to public cloud without deeper investigation can actually be very dangerous. And what we've seen is there is a majority of organizations who are moving some workloads to the cloud, whether it's because of AI, whether it's because of data warehousing, or even just leveraging cloud infrastructure, they're moving there. And cyber attackers, profit-seeking cyber attackers especially, have shifted over to cloud-conscious attacks. So you've seen whether it's because of customer misconfigurations, where there's been data breaches, or simply folks trying to exploit and encrypt cloud environments as well. But from a backup and recovery perspective, it is very, very challenging if you're only protecting compute, databases, and storage. Why? Because there's an entire universe of additional services that your organization's using. So think about what you're leveraging today, especially whether you're using a third-party backup service or even the native backup services like AWS Backup, Azure Backup. You are focused on protecting your instance, your database, and your storage. And maybe you do have some infrastructure as code to spin up your configurations. But the reality is that there are ways to delete data, whether it's on your VPCs, whether it's on your networking, your Route 53 serverless, it doesn't matter. There's so many services and so many ways where somebody can exploit, an insider threat could attack, or even simply a fat-fingered approach where you've misconfigured something, even a Terraform template gone wrong. There's so many different unique ways where data is lost. It's not simply deletion, corruption, DR scenario, ransomware scenario. It is an order of magnitude more of different scenarios where you can lose data. But historically, the
Andy,
backup industry, oh, go for it.
I was just going to say a quick customer story about this. Literally, this kind of what you were saying there about infrastructure as code. I was talking to a customer and a prospect not that long ago, and they said, yeah, we're kind of covered for all that stuff because we've got Terraform, right? So if we lose it, we just spin it back up. And then I said to them, well, how are you protecting Terraform? And then what do you mean? I said, well, what if someone got into your Terraform and changed that, tweaked it? They don't even have to delete it, right? Deletion is very obvious. What if they tweaked it so it deployed a different VPC or a different network config or one different file rule that let them get in, right? And then suddenly a light bulb went on and said, "Oh my God! Like, how would we then roll that back? We wouldn't know, wouldn't." So suddenly their light bulb moment is like, okay, they think they're covered because they've got this infrastructure as code, and it's like, okay, well, how do you protect that? How are you protecting that configuration as well? Exactly what you were saying. These things are new to everybody, and just because you have it in place doesn't mean you're protected, right? You still have to protect configuration and code as well as data.
Yeah, Chris, I'll give you an example of a specific workload. Let's grab something where people don't really think about, but they depend on it every single day. Something like Lambda, right? There are organizations, for
Yes.
example, that leverage Lambda functions to alert them of any security incident, of any misconfigured bucket, any intruder, you name it, right? What happens if those YAML files are gone? What happens if you delete that and you're not aware and you weren't able to recover? What happens then, right? There's so many intricate scenarios for data loss that the moral of the story today for this, especially if you're already running private cloud, or you're thinking about doing so, is take a very hard look at how you're going to protect the entire application, not just pattern matching to I'm going to protect the compute, the database, and the S3 bucket as well. But
Agreed.
something that I want to emphasize as well is just like on-prem, it's your choice to what your organization needs in order to be successful. At HYCU, we're here to help you support and protect all three public clouds. And one of the things that we've recently announced as well is also additional support for Azure SQL and Azure Blob Storage as well. This gives us a long list of cloud services, not just compute, storage, and database, but also things like Lambda, GKE, artifact registries, so many critical data sets or configuration sets in your applications that you have to be able to protect. And there's a couple of things that's very important here. There are great backup and recovery native tooling that you can do, for example, with AWS backup. But most organizations are using multiple clouds. How are you managing backups across the board? You can start building a Rube Goldberg machine of backup and recovery via scripting, SNS, but it can be very challenging. What we offer at HYCU is a full standardization. One is you can automate all backups the same. By the way, you're going to be able to manage them from the same place. I'll share that in a second. You're not just performing bulk recovery operations. You're not just restoring an instance or database. You can restore specific items, whether that's a file level restore in EC2 or a specific configuration or security level restore at an object level. But you also can integrate DR. You don't have to have separate disparate items for cross-regional recovery. But something super important here, if you're running production in one public cloud, all of your eggs are in one basket. You want to make sure that you have third-party compromised resilience, making sure that you have cross-cloud supply chain protection as well. But what I'm excited about now is one thing that I want to double click on. Your organization is most likely using two public clouds. If you are committed to public clouds, you are using two public clouds. How does that actually work? Well, potentially you're leveraging AWS for infrastructure, and you're leveraging Google for big data and analytics, and you're really relying on something like BigQuery. The permutations are endless, but most organizations that we're seeing, this is validated by Gartner, are using multiple cloud providers. In an effort to avoid building an additional data protection stack, leveraging disparate solutions, leveraging disparate scripts in order to simply protect some of the services in these clouds applications that you have, we have included multi-cloud visibility and management within our cloud as well. What does that actually mean? Well, you can connect and add AWS, Google, Azure, all of the protected underlying services and manage them from the same place. And when I mean manage them, I don't simply mean having visibility, but being able to assign backups, being able to manage your storage, being able to restore at any point across any single one, and also having cross-cloud mobility as well. When you're running production in one cloud, all of your eggs are in one basket. You want to make sure that you can diversify and have supply chain resilience as well. This is critical. I'm not going to spend too much more time because so much of the audience questions today and polls are focused on hybrid cloud, but there's one more item that we want to touch on before we get into threat hunting, malware scanning, which I'm very, very excited about. And it's the concept of SaaS. And because you're customers, we're going to share a sneak peek of an upcoming report that we have. And last year, you're probably familiar with it. We did a State of SaaS Resilience report. And we've done it again this year with over 500 IT personas. This could be from the IT administrator to the CIO. And what we found was shocking. One thing that I'm going to ask in the audience, especially if you want to leverage the chat function, is take a step back and think about how many SaaS applications your organization is using today. And think beyond M365. Just take a quick step back and think, how many SaaS applications am I using today? Now I'm going to check the chat to see kind of what the answers are from folks. Let's see what we have here. Okay, I'm starting to see a couple. And what I'll share is a bit of a customer story with you as well. We'll ask customers sometimes, like yourselves, how many SaaS applications are you using? And what comes to mind? Probably what you're spending the most amount of money on, right? Salesforce, M365, Okta, these certain applications. But what we found in this survey was the average organization was using 139 SaaS applications. And this even included highly regulated industries, specifically financial services and healthcare. 139 SaaS applications. Those are 139 types of applications that used to be hosted in a data center and are now primarily consumed as a SaaS. But guess what? You're still responsible for that data. Just like you're backing up M365, the rest of those SaaS applications follow the same shared responsibility model. But what we found was that of those who answered, 65% of those respondents experienced a SaaS related breach in the last 12 months. And when we looked at the average cost of disruption and the average length of disruption across these SaaS applications, the average cost of a SaaS cyber incident was $2.3 million. And this is not a massive enterprise. This is a mean or an average of organizations from mid-market all the way to enterprise. So it's something to very, very critically think that it's not just saying, well, Nutanix is critical, I need to protect that. Yes, it is. But so are all the other SaaS applications that you want to make sure that you can protect. And what I challenge everybody on the call to think about is kind of go back and take a look and take stock of your tech stack. Take stock of what your organization is using, not just in IT, but engineering, marketing, sales. You would be shocked to see the amount of point solutions that are used in financial departments and legal departments. And think, for example, of something as simple as GitHub, your IP core data. How are you protecting GitHub? If there's an incident, which GitHub is a top target for supply chain attacks, how are you protecting that data? Do you have access to that data if GitHub goes down? So these are things to think about. But one thing that we want to make sure that you have access to is every single HYCU customer can access our graph for free. And what our graph is, it's resiliency graph. It gives you a full visual of your entire data estate. And you can take a look and understand, okay, across all departments, here's how many SaaS applications I'm using, and here is what is completely unprotected. So if you scan the QR code or you look at the chat, there's going to be a link there. Go and check out how you can leverage our graph. And within same day, we'll be able to have somebody on with you to show you exactly how to turn this on at no additional cost. But what I want to quickly touch on is we also have new protected workloads over the last few months that we've released. One is, as many of you know, and I saw some questions already on M365, is we've always protected M365. But something that we provided was a fully integrated version of this with our bring your own storage approach for M365 across Exchange, OneDrive, SharePoint, even Teams and Planner, all protected within the R Cloud platform as well. We've offered support for Box and recently even iManage Cloud, especially if you're a legal firm. This is something that you are most likely using as well. But what I want to touch on here, especially for those folks who are protecting M365 and many other workloads, is we're very supportive of the bring your own storage approach. This is something that's super critical for us to be able to say, look, you know what to do with your data. You want to make sure that nobody else has access to this, and you're going to be able to protect these critical workloads. So at HYCU, think of us as an encrypted highway when it comes to SaaS. From the source, right, that site, whether that's GitHub, whether that's Atlassian M365, you can now leverage HYCU to store that in your customer-owned storage. What does this bring? It brings flexibility. You decide how long you want to retain it. You decide the backup frequency. You decide everything. You can make sure that it's immutable with the technology that you already have, and it doesn't require additional infrastructure to manage. Only you have access to these workloads as well. And if you're thinking and you're taking stock and maybe you perform the R graph assessment and you see a bunch of different applications, well, you can go to our marketplace and here where it says request application support, you can explicitly ask, hey, I want you to protect Slack or Zoom or Workday, you name it. And we have immediate alerts and we take a look and make sure that we can follow up to see if we're able to help protect those workloads for you, right? The number one source of our decisions here are you as our customers, both on new platforms, but also on new SaaS applications and cloud services. But what we want to spend the rest of our time here is on the concept of cyber resilience. This is something that is very, very, very important to us, very near and dear to our hearts. And when you think about your hybrid cloud infrastructure, we know that backups are the number one target. That's not new information. That's common sense. Why not go after the most prized possession to make sure that I can maximize my leverage during a ransomware attack? But a few months ago, we released R Shield. And think of R Shield not just as malware detection, but backup posture management and specific purpose-built cyber resilience capabilities, no matter the workload that you're leveraging with HYCU. But what I want to talk about now specifically is some of the enhancements to our Shield scanner. Chris, very quickly, because we're running out of time here, I want to make sure we can
Yeah.
address. Tell me what we've already done from an R Shield scanner perspective. What can a HYCU
Mhm.
customer do today? And then what are some of the capabilities that we've enhanced?
Yeah, absolutely. So today, if you're running any of our hypervisors or hybrid cloud edition, right? You can get your hands on the, full immutability, backup posture management, which is a you're kind of an ongoing way of checking that backups are being secured in the right way. The platform itself is secure. Um, you can also then adopt immutability however you want. SLA management to make sure that you're meeting your SLAs, all those types of things. If you're running Nutanix, which a lot of our customers are, right? You know the history of where we came from and what we did. You're also able to access our malware scanning, the R-Shield scanner capability as well. So that is a full deep scan of your thing, every single virtual machine that you have um, running on your platform, protected by HYCU. We do a deep scan using, if you're technical, Yara rules, which is one of the most effective ways to catch potential malware and suspicious files. It uses pattern matching rather than just metadata, which a lot of our competition does use, is just metadata. Um, Typically, what they will do is they put them on a big box somewhere, ship that to the cloud, and then use the cloud processing power to then process what they need to do, bring it back down to your box, and then tell you about it at some point in the future. We essentially do things a little bit differently, right? So we are key with our sovereignty message, again, which Andy mentioned earlier about SaaS. That still applies to your on-premise, if not even more than your on-premise data sets, right? So we don't want to be shipping it to anybody else's cloud or anyone else's own storage or anyone else's, encryption, etc. So we do everything at your source. One of the key pieces being you always maintain control and sovereignty over the data. Nothing ever leaves your site, but also enables storage flexibility as well. So you don't have to buy a big box that obviously from one of the other competitors. You can use whatever you want, whether that's a Dell data domain, Nutanix objects, S3 compatible, even direct to cloud storage as well. So that's kind of where we are today, right? So you can, any of our customers, you can download our 5.1 release and access this today, right? What we're doing in 5.2 in our latest release is everything's now going to be policy driven cyber resilience. So whereas before it was, not kind of embedded, but it was kind of an slightly extra step you needed to go through to do this. What we've now done is bring that intelligent simplicity to the cyber resilience story as well. So bringing it into the same policy where you set up your fast recoveries, where you set up your archiving, where you set up your copies, where you set up your business SLAs to translate those into technical value from HYCU. In the same place you set all of that up, you set your cyber resilience as well. So it should never be forgotten, never an afterthought, always in a core workflow. What we've also done is with our development team and our solution engineering team is we've actually increased performance by 12x. I think that's phenomenal. When someone told me that, I was like, oh, they must have made that was 12%, right? And they went, no, 12 times. So what used to take us like 2 hours now takes us like 30 minutes or something stupid like that, something crazy, less than that. You can then access your malware scanning results anywhere. So whereas before we were going to use webhooks, we listened to our customers and our customers said, hey, I need this in the UI. I need this exactly where I see everything else in HYCU. So guess what we've delivered? We've bring that straight into the UI where you want to see it. We then have an ability to tag particular checkpoints or particular recovery points or restore points to say they are anomalous or not anomalous, right? So if you've got a team that's set up in a clean room somewhere and gone through and recovered data and gone, do you know what? That's clean. It's not suspicious. It's fine. You can then come in and mark that as okay with a tag or with a comment to say, yep, all clean, red team cleared, right? So when your backup administrator then comes in to look and say, oh, I've got a request for this database from yesterday, he knows it's been checked, he knows it's clean, he knows he can recover that data safely, right? What we don't want to do is put attack loops back in, right? Recover bad data back into the environment, which is going to put us back at risk, right? That's what we don't want to do. So all these things are coming in our 5.2 release, which is I think is amazing. Hopefully I'll get to show you in a second some of these capabilities. But please put any questions. This is something that always spurs a lot of customer questions, a lot of prospect questions as well. So if you have any questions, please put them in the chat and we'll make sure we have time to get to them. But hopefully that will make sense. Hopefully maybe it will make a bit more sense when I show you on screen what I'm talking about and kind of you can see it with your own eyes, right? Seeing is believing and all that. Shall I jump
So
straight into the demo,
perfect.
Andy?
Yeah, Chris, let's go into a quick demo. Let's do a 5 minute demo because we want to be able to address a couple questions and one last critical update as
Yeah.
well, which we've been asked about. But walk us through what this looks like. And something that I want to emphasize as well is this is all source level. So for those who answer that they are Nutanix customers or moving to Nutanix, Chris is going to show you exactly what this looks like in a Nutanix environment and show you how you can automate this fully alongside with your traditional backup policy management as well. So Chris, I'll challenge you to 5 minutes and we'll see how we go.
Perfect. Yeah, I'll make sure I'm quick. So the first thing, let's look at our policies, right? So we said policy driven. So as you know, everything in Haiku is intelligently simple. It's not just you know simple for simple sake. It's trying to bring intelligence into those workflows so you kind of everything is as easy as possible. So if we look at any of these policies, we can then come in, edit the policy, and you'll see here the same place we're recovering backup, we're configuring copies, fast recoveries, archiving if we want to have an archiving policy, replicating all those things. The same place we're setting our RTO and our RPO and our retention is the same place we're setting our R shield. Our same place we're setting our cyber resilience. So all we do is click the button, we add our R shield policy, and then from the bottom here we decide which one we want, right? And I'll show you how to make one in a second. So if we've got a particular workload that we want some different anomaly detection features on or different thresholds, we can choose those. So we can choose the default, which is there by default, obviously, or you can have one for databases, and you can make these whatever you want them to be. But it's very, very simple to set up. As you can see, you just click it and click save. And inside of here, you then go into your R shield policy. And this is how you set one up. So you go to R shield, you decide what you're doing here, what the change percentage is. For a database, you may want that higher. You may want a 50% before you configure. It's completely tunable for everybody, and every particular workload as well. So you can have those assigned to different policies, and they can mirror your backups as well. And then, so that's the first piece, which is the policy-driven cyber resilience. And if we look at, I can't show you performance improvement. I would just be looking at a log file and telling you how long it took. But trust me, it's a hell of a lot quicker. But in terms of our malware scanning results, anywhere, these are the things that show what is clean and what's not clean data. So from the same place that you're seeing if your backups are compliant, whether they meet those RPOs and RTOs you're set, with the same place you're seeing whether it's protected, whether the backup has run or not. The same place if you've discovered applications, whether those backups are application consistent. The same place where you're validating, where Haiku's automatically validated the backup is working and is recoverable, is the same place you look at when R Shield scans and says this is fine. So you can see on my screen here, I hover over the R Shield symbol. Anomaly detection status is okay. So we haven't found any indicators of compromise. And we've also scanned the 2 disks on here, and the scans come back as clean as well. So from a single view, you get a really, really easy way to say, this is clean, this is not clean. And if I click one here or show you one here that is suspicious, right? Anomaly detection, not applicable. So maybe there's something wrong here, but also it's said to be found suspicious data. So on these disks, we found suspicious data, and these are the files that we found. And then if I just dive a bit deeper into this, the idea of HYCU is complete visibility and complete control. So when a backup administrator or even an application owner comes into this and says, I need to recover data, well, they click the restore point, and from here they've still got the same information that we had before, with even more actual detail here. So from the same restore pane, they know whether they're recovering clean or bad data from there. And then from here, we can then just choose this point in time and say, okay, the anomaly detection was suspicious. Okay, we can type in a manual override, whatever. Okay, no anomalies found, or whatever it might be. And the same for malware detection. So you have it cleaned up or not suspicious, whatever it might be. So we can then manually tag those and sign those off. And if we do that, we'll get a little manual message next to it to note you. So the administrator or whoever is looking at the backups can say, I know this has been manually changed, so it's clean or it's been looked at. Whereas if it's just the raw R symbol, you'll know it's what Haiku's automated as well. So that gives us complete visibility, complete control. And then from a reporter standpoint, and I've got literally 1 minute left, we can then come in and report on this as well. So you can see here, I've developed a report, completely customized whatever fields and everything you want in here. I've got a board meeting. I need to prove my compliance. I need to prove to my cyber insurance that I've got some stuff in place. Well, here it is. I need to send this on a schedule out to my boss every week to show you how, if we've detected anything. Or I need to send this to my red team on a daily basis so they can start investigating anything that's picked up. Great, perfect. The great thing is also, if you're using our webhooks and using those things directly into your SIEM, your source systems, into Teams, into Slack, those things still exist as well. We haven't taken any capability away. So we're just giving visibility to wherever the user wants it. So hopefully that all makes sense. And I'll hand back to Andy to carry on with the rest of the presentation.
Thank you so much, Chris. And something that I do want to emphasize here is our Shield scanner within the UI. And these enhancements that you're seeing are going to be available in 5.2, which we're pushing out this week as well. You're going to get an email notifying you of what's new as well. I'm going to share my screen again. Chris, let me know when you can see that.
Yeah, all good from my side.
Perfect. Something to mention too in the chat, there is a link to a product tour where you can actually play around with this and see exactly how it works. But there's one last thing, and actually we had a question on this and I want to make sure we address. And that is, well, how do I manage all of this? And when you think about your data estate or your tech stack, you know, you always have had a backup and recovery solution for your VMs and your file shares. You most likely have a solution for your cloud infrastructure, whether that is a native solution like AWS Backup or another third-party solution. But then you're going to have your administrative team come to you and say, look, I need to make sure that we can protect GitHub, or I need to make sure that we can protect Jira or iManage. And what starts to happen is you start to build out a data protection stack just to be able to protect all of your workloads. You're using different vendors with different support models, different agreements, different documentation, different management silos, and different storage structures as well. This could be very challenging. It can actually become a full-time job on its own. Now, one thing that I want to emphasize is this is a milestone launch for HYCU. Why? Because we have more than 90 workloads protected. Nearly 3 years ago, we came to you with this vision of being able to protect every single workload in your environment, and we are at 90 workloads. What I mean by 90, I don't mean simply bulk recovery operations. I mean deep recovery, purpose-built backup and recovery for your critical applications, regardless of what they are. And this is very special, but one of the things we want to make sure is that this is easy to manage for you as a customer as well. And we know we had a question around this, and what I'm super excited about, which you'll be able to get access to as well, is one view within our cloud to be able to manage everything. Being able to see and have full visibility into my VMs, my file shares, my cloud instances across all three public clouds, and of course, my SaaS applications. So what I ask is, we're going to provide you with a quick tour of this, or you can reach out with your account management team and take a quick look and schedule a demo. But this is something that we're very excited about. It should not require an army of backup tools to protect your organization. It should not require several full-time jobs for you to be able to simply keep the lights on. Our goal is to protect everything, but to minimize everything that your organization needs to do in order to keep the lights on. And what I challenge everybody to think about today is, you're protecting Nutanix with HYCU, you're protecting M365. Take a good accounting of what are the other critical applications that must be protected. And what you're able to do is immediately go and start protecting that with HYCU. But what I want to address is a couple of questions. I want to, first of all, mention, this is a customer dialogue. Everything that we do, all of our decisions around how do we make your lives better? How do we protect more of your data? How do we do it in a much easier way? So, folks like Ken who are asking about different hypervisor supports, reach out to us, whether through your account management team or directly to us, and let's open a dialogue and understand, where is it that you want to go? What does that look like for you? What are the capabilities that you need? And of course, that also applies to the storage targets that you want to use. What needs to be certified, and what do we need to be able to make sure that we can show you that you can protect and send your workloads to? There's a bunch more questions. I've tried to address all of them via the chat, but Chris and I will stay after and email every single one of you who's asked the question. But the last thing that I want to mention here is, take a tour of HYCU. You're probably using it for one or two services. Take a tour of HYCU, scan this QR code, and look at all the different applications that you're able to protect with HYCU, and see that it's going to be the same exact experience, but with completely deep purpose-built object coverage as well. Things like GitHub 365, they're so critical for your organization. You can consolidate all of this and really reduce a lot of the waste that comes with a data protection stack. So with that, we want to first of all thank you for being customers. We want to make sure that we always continue a dialogue. We want to thank you for your feedback. If you have any questions, any desires, any needs that you have specifically with current workloads or even future workloads, drop them in the chat, or we can schedule a full discussion with the product team or reach out to your account management team. But with that, I want to thank you all so much for your attention, for your time. Once again, this session is recorded. You will have access to this and the slides, and hopefully we'll be hearing from you soon. Chris, thank you so much for today and for the demos.
No
Everybody, I
worries.
hope you have a great day.